Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Moonshots and Meatballs. It has been a while. It's been a
Been a
crazy
while.
off season, but we wanted to kind of wait until everything kind of went on so we can recap everything. And then after that, we just couldn't link up. Like if I had something or you, and literally our schedules were the exact opposite for like 2.5 weeks, and it was brutal.
But glad we're meeting up tonight.
Yes, yes, and we're here to talk about the MLB offseason. We're gonna go through this episode, be the NL offseason grades for every single team. We're not doing one. We're not doing two. We're not just doing three. We're doing 15 grades. And then the next episode will be the AL. I'm excited. I haven't talked baseball in a long time, and I'm excited to talk some baseball.
It has been a minute. I am ready to go.
All right. All right. So we're going to start. We're going in alphabetical order here for anybody that wants to kind of follow along. We're going to start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and not the busiest offseason for
No.
the D-backs. A couple of veterans they got. They signed Zach Davies to a contract to be in that rotation. They signed Miguel Castro to be in that bullpen. Was traded to the Yankees last year and was part of theirs. They signed Evan Longoria to a 2-year contract, or is that a one? No, excuse me, 1-year contract. They signed Scott McGough, the relief pitcher, to the 33-year-old to a 2-year contract. They also signed Jerry's Familia to a minor league deal. That's really it. They didn't really do too much. This again is a team with a lot of young guys that are expected to come in and make an impact, like a Corbin Carroll, who
Yeah. I think the Diamondbacks kind of did the right thing this offseason, coming off being awful. They are, coming into the wings with a top prospect in Corbin Carroll. They traded for guys like Kyle Lewis. And they've got Gabriel Moreno, who they just traded for as well, coming
yes,
up
I
through
did
the
forget that.
system. They've got a lot of young talent that is going to be seeing the field this year, dipping their toe. I don't really have any expectations for it, but the Mariners, they aren't jumping the gun. They aren't getting out there and trying to sign people before their windows trying to hit. So, they're just enjoying the process and where
Yeah.
they're.
So I do wish. I mean, you got guys, you got some studs on this team. Again, you got Christian Walker, I think, is a very underrated player in baseball. Zach Gallen, I mean, if he
Uh,
played in another market, he's getting so much love, this guy.
yeah,
And he's only sitting at 27 and a half years old right now. So while I think they know they're not going to win, and I'm not looking for you to make the big splash, I wish they signed just some pieces to a 1 or 2 year deal that you can trade off at the MLB deadline so you can get more pieces. Just
yeah,
guys that are on prove it deals or some older veterans that can produce. I think an Evan Longoria can be one of those guys, but I think he's maybe a little too old. He's 37. So I
yeah.
just
You're not
wish
going to
they
get
had a
much
little
from him.
more. That I love them getting Gurriel, Lourdes Gurriel from the whatchamacallit,
Blue
the Blue
Jays.
Jays. That I thought that was probably their best move of the offseason. We didn't really talk about uh that as much in the beginning when I was listing off transactions, but that might have been their biggest move. I love that move for them putting him in there. They got a lot for Varsho with, like you
They
said,
did
Gabriel
get a lot.
Moreno.
They did get a
So
lot.
like I mean, like I wasn't really in favor of them moving Varsho because he was very young as well and he could just play so many positions. But when you got a haul like that, I'm okay with it.
I really like Moreno too. I think he will
Yes.
be he'll be a nice piece. Could be everyday catcher
Catcher. I think
come
Carson
middle of the
Kelly's
season.
probably better as maybe more of a platoon catcher. I mean, this dude can rake, but I think he probably, if you have Moreno there, you could trade Kelly or you can use him as your kind of 1B,
Yeah,
especially as Moreno starts to get back, starts to develop. And you're not going to play him every single day as a starting catcher as a young guy like that.
yeah,
Overall, I probably give their off season probably like a C,
That's
just because
exactly what I was thinking.
I
It's
love the
class
trade.
average.
I love the trade. Um, I like some of what they did. I just wish they did more of it to sell at the deadline. I mean, I know they didn't do anything crazy. They weren't terrible, but I wish they just did a little more for me.
Yeah, C is a good grade for me as well. Not to say that they didn't do anything great or do anything bad, but they didn't do anything really great in my eyes either. So, there's some future potential for this offseason to be an A if Moreno and if we see Kyle Lewis be rookie of the year like he was for the Mariners, show some of that potential. But
There is definitely there's definitely things to look forward to with this team.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
all cloudy and rainy. There's some sunshine.
I think a C is a fair grade though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the Atlanta Braves. Now, their biggest move was trading for Sean Murphy. They traded some prospects, but more importantly, they traded William Contreras. He ends up on the Brewers, which was a
Shock.
crazy
Yeah.
trade. Like it was like two, oh no, it's three teams. Oh my, that was a pretty crazy deal. Otherwise, they signed Nick Anderson to a 1-year contract. They signed Jordan Luplow, who can play a bit of first base, a bit of outfield to a 1-year contract. They didn't really do too much in the offseason or like in the signing department. They lost Kenley Jansen, who was there, and they lost Dansby Swanson, who's the big one, of course, to the
Yep.
Cubs. But I wish with just how much, again, I'm happy that they're not spending. Like, I'll take it as a Mets fan. But from a Braves perspective, just the way the Phillies and the Mets seem to be gearing up, this is going to be a bloodbath for years. And you see the classes coming up, and Steve Cohen's not done spending.
No.
Year after year, it's going to be like this. I'm curious whether the Phillies keep up, but the Phillies have a very good team still, and they added Trey Turner, and we'll get to the Phillies. And I like Sean Murphy. I do.
Yeah.
But how much is he going to upgrade that offense? I know he upgrades the defense, which you definitely is useful and you like, but I think their defense was pretty good already. How much better does that get you versus William Contreras and Travis d'Arnaud as well? Because he's now playing more of, I guess he's playing more DH now, or he's not even, unless you're not playing Ozuna there, then he's platooning. So, and does
Yeah,
how much
their offseason really saw a lot of departures. I like Sean Murphy. I don't know if that was a hefty price that they
it
paid.
was. William Contreras, I thought could be a very good DH.
He
He
was
can
an
catch once in
all-star
a
this
while.
last year.
Yeah, his bat's awesome.
Yeah.
His bat was awesome. So I just don't. I understand that, like, if Sean Murphy's bat just progresses a little more, like if he can start to maybe get even like 10 or 20 points higher average wise, a little more on the slugging, and that the average will contribute to the on base and the OPS, then it looks like a steal, or not a steal, but it looks like a win trade, because then he's producing maybe as much offense as Contreras, but a lot better defensively. But if that doesn't happen, if he just plays, he's an awesome catcher. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't know how much better that makes your team. And I know they're getting back a guy like Soroka, who's going to make a huge difference on this team. I know Acuna is going to be 100% healthy, who I think is their best player, and he will probably play like it next year. But you're not looking at that from like the offseason. I wanted to see more. I would have wanted to see more if I was a Braves fan. I mean, getting those guys back does count, and getting a guy like Sean Murphy helps, but I think I'm leaning between C plus and B minus, and I think I'll probably end up going B minus just because they won the division last year, so you have to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they have a lot of young guys like a Michael Harris, like they're going to get Ozzy Albies back. Although I think Ozzy Albies might be the most overrated player in baseball.
I don't know about all that.
People have him as like a top 3 second baseman. It's crazy. He's not even top 8 in my opinion, top 7. Look at his all right. You can look at his numbers and then we can get back to that. But he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me listen, I'm not trying to bash all the Aussies here. He's a good player. Just I think people thought of him as elite. But you're getting him back, which is a help. Again, Soroka could be a huge addition to this bullpen. So ultimately, I'll give this a B-.
I gotta say, I'm feeling a B+. And I haven't. Losing Dansby Swanson hurts a lot, obviously.
Yes, I think you have probably Vaughn Grisham playing there now.
I have mixed feelings about Dansby Swanson. But I think the Braves are going to be fine. And, one thing that I really liked about this offseason was how they've continued to lock their guys up. I mean, Spencer Strider, 6-year deal, very team friendly.
Yes.
Sean Murphy, after they traded for him, 6-year deal.
Very team friendly as well. I'll give them that.
From that aspect, I think that's a win. I think, they lost a couple guys, but, this past year they lost Freddie Freeman, who was their best player, and they still go out and win the division.
I mean, they did get Matt. They did replace him, though. There's a difference. They did replace Freddie Freeman. And while I like Vaughn Grisham, for him to go to the shortstop position, it takes a toll on you, defensively. Just you have to contribute that much more than second base, and relying on that. I know some people, Braves fans, are pointing to Jeremy Pena and how well he did, but how often does that happen?
That's true.
You can't always count on that, type of situation. So again,
I'm feeling the Braves a little bit more benefit of the doubt than you are.
I'm not really counting as much as because a lot of those contracts took place midseason. Half of these guys or most of these guys they signed on absolute steals of a contract. A highway robbery. Somebody needs to arrest their general manager because it's actually ridiculous. All right, we're moving on. You give a B+, I gave a B-. We're moving on to your team.
Yes, sir.
The Chicago Cubs. And they had one big splash, one pretty big splash. They get Dansby Swanson. He is now the face of that franchise. He is your guy. It is Dansby's show in Wrigley. And they also signed a nice piece that could be a little nice. And Cody Bellinger to a 1-year deal. Of course, Dansby was a 7-year contract. They did a couple other things. They signed Jameson Taillon to a 4-year deal. They got Tucker Barnhart to be behind the dish. They signed Trey Mancini to a 2-year deal. Who I love Trey Mancini. Who doesn't love Trey Mancini? But the Cubs, a very active team. They also get Drew Smyly for 2 years. This is a team that was very active. I mean, if you're looking at their starting lineup, you got Dansby, Happ, Horner, Suzuki, Mancini, Morel, probably starting at third base now. How do you feel about that? Or would you rather have Wisdom starting?
I love it. Have Wisdom be a platoon DH guy. I mean, he nukes on lefties. So, you know what? Give him a Jock Peterson role where he only plays against lefties. He'll hit 15 homers a year and maybe he'll hit 20 homers a year. And maybe
you also have Hosmer that you signed, but that was I think it was a minor league deal.
Oh, a major league deal.
Or it was a league minimum, excuse me, not minor league minimum deal.
I've got to say, for where the Cubs are at, the more and more I keep looking at this offseason, the more and more in love with it I'm falling. I have mixed feelings about Dansby Swanson. I am trending towards the more optimistic side as I continue to look at his numbers. Yes, he had his best season of his career last year.
In a contract year.
It's never been sustained. But, maybe he's just entering his prime right now.
He did come up very young. He was a first-round pick. He was the number one overall.
Number one overall.
Not even just a first-round pick. He was the number 1 overall pick. And it's sometimes people rush those guys. I am curious to see how he does where he's not guarded.
Yeah.
By an Austin Riley. He's not guarded by a Ronald Acuna Jr. He's not guarded.
He's going to be guarded by All-Star Ian Happ. He's going to be guarded by Seiya Suzuki, who
but those guys, I'm not saying he's got talent around him, but he doesn't have the same talent. Like you are way more scared of facing Austin Riley than you are Seiya Suzuki. You say Suzuki's a very good player, but Austin Riley is an
Right
MVP
now,
caliber.
right now, yeah.
So I love what the Cubs did. I'm not. I will say I'm not huge on the. I like Jamison Tyone. That was a lot of money and
That
a
was
lot
a
of.
great deal.
I'm not on the money side. It was okay. The term is a little bit for me, especially where the Cubs are. But I like the player. I think it helps fill out your rotation pretty
He's an
well. You got
innings eater,
Stroman,
man.
Tyone, Steele, Smiley, and Thompson. That is your projected
It's a
starting
pretty good.
rotation. That's a You don't have a stud on that rotation. I'm not. I think Stroman can be a stud, but I
I
like
think
him as a.
Stroman finished the year off very
He
hot
did,
last year.
but I think you're missing that other guy that goes with it, and I think that can
Yeah,
come. You still have a lot of guys that are going to come up in the next year or two. I think most Cubs fans and most people would think they're not making the playoffs this year. They could be in it for a bit, but I don't think you look how stacked the NL is. I think what they put themselves in position to do is most of their prospects are outfield prospects, their
yes.
best ones, and they have a lot of them. They also have some good outfield talent. So I'm very curious on how this trade deadline and this coming off kind of plays out. Because do they trade a guy like Ian Happ, who's on a contract here? Because you got talent coming up. Do you trade some of your top prospects for other maybe young major league talent? And just maybe not like a guy that's a rental, but a guy that has control for a while that just looking to needs more chances to play or something like that, or like an infielder, or like a third baseman or something like that. Because Morel, you could play at center field. So
Morel can play anywhere on the field.
exactly, I think they set themselves up where they have a lot of talent in the outfield position. I'm curious how they build their infield and their pitching, and I think they're probably going to end up selling at the deadline and getting a lot of, instead of high, maybe single A players, double A, they're going to be looking for triple A players who are higher talent that can contribute starting next year, or starting at this year, they can come up and start to get MLB experience. So I think like a guy like Happ he'll get you a king's ransom, but I think he'll be dealt. I know you probably don't think that. I think Bellinger will have a nice bounce back year and he'll get dealt and he'll get you some pieces. I think we'll see if Stroman gets dealt. I think he's his last year is his second season.
I believe he signed a 4-year deal last season.
I think it was a 3-year, but anyway, do you guys still have who's the pitcher that who's on the how am I forgetting his name? Kyle Hendricks. Is he still on the team?
Yes.
Yes. So you can also trade Kyle Hendricks. I don't know how much he'll get. You're hoping for a bounce back season probably from Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, I don't know how much more we'll see of Kyle Hendricks,
He's
but
on the IR right now. That's why I was like, I didn't see him. I didn't know like the IR was back further below on the list. But
I think your points about them selling at the deadline are valid. I think that's why we made contracts with guys like Hosmer and guys like
Bellinger.
guys like Mancini, because we've done this recently where we've gone out and signed guys who maybe have been a bit down on their luck coming off. I mean, Bellinger and the Jock Peterson situation could almost be mirrored, because he was cast off from the Dodgers, came and signed a lowly deal with the Cubs. We trade him, get some pretty good prospects who we're seeing move up. And I think we could see that play itself out again with those type of guys. I also think this Cubs team is going to be a little frisky. I think
I agree.
hot to finish up the year, especially our starting pitchers. And if any of that rolls over, I think the lineup we've built has coverage against lefties, righties, power pitchers, finesse pitchers. I think whoever you're throwing at them, they have a counter to that. I think the Cubs can compete for the Central next year. I don't see the wild card happening. If they're going to get in, I believe it will be in the Central. The Cardinals did make some good moves, but don't sleep on these Cubs.
I don't see them winning the division. I will say that's their best chance to make the playoffs.
Agreed.
Because that wild card,
I think
the wild card, you are going to need at least 90 wins to get in.
Yeah.
And I see the Cubs being better. I see them as a third place team. I see them getting probably a high 70s amount of wins. They're I think a year or two away from really starting to compete. I think Milwaukee's going to take a step back. So I think there's an opening for them maybe next year. I think this is the year you're saying, okay, we see some talent. We have the guys on the rise. Now let's go attack. And you have your leader now in Dansby. And it's always, again, these kind of, with a Cubs team like this, when your team's on the rise, it's always good to get veterans, help out the young guys, and then sell them off, have the young guys get the experience and bring in more young guys. So I give them an A.
I was feeling the same thing. I was even thinking A plus, but
I think
I was waning on giving them an A plus because I really wanted Correa, and we didn't even go after him. But I'll stick with the A.
I think A plus is reserved usually for me for one or two teams, and it's hard for me to give because that means I can't nitpick anything. I can't nitpick anything. And I think you could have maybe they could have won. I would have loved them go after like another pitcher.
Yeah.
Or just like a veteran guy for like another, like a 2-year deal, 1-year deal.
I think the Tyon signing, though he's not a star, I think it's very underrated because he's an innings hound.
He is an innings eater, I will admit. I just the 4-year term, I'm curious on how that works. I'm curious because that's eating into the time where you think you're going to be successful. And I think on a strong playoff team, he is probably a 4.
I think
or 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And right now he's your 2.
I think Stroman could be a 2 on a really good team.
I agree.
I think we have pieces to move to get a very good pitcher.
So that is true. You have a lot of outfield talent. So what if you move 2 of your outfield prospects, like an Alcantara, and maybe you move Morel, and you go get a decent pitcher?
I'd be fine with that.
I don't think you're going to go get like Corbin Burns, even though he might be available because he's, again, a rival. But like, there are going to be good pitchers out there. All right, let's move on to another NL Central team, and that's the Cincinnati Reds, or the Cincinnati Deads. So like, what do they do?
The Browns of the MLB.
They signed Will Myers. I did like the Will Myers signing. Kirk Casale, but not too much. Luke Weaver, they got it to be a nice pitcher for a year. But again, this Cincinnati team, I don't see them doing much. They non-tendered Mike Moustakas. So if you look at their lineup, they have Jonathan India, who I think is going to have a massive bounce back year. I think he has a big bounce back year. Will Myers playing first. Tyler Stevenson at catcher. Kevin Newman at the shortstop position. Votto DH, who somehow is playing again. I mean, that dude he's 39.
He's old.
Nick Senzel at center. Spencer Steer at left. Jake Farley at right. TJ Friel at left field, and then your 4th outfield would be like Stuart Fairchild. You also got Kirk Casale, who can come in and play first base and catch a bit. And then when you look at the rotation, you got Lodolo, Hunter Green. Well, I can expect big things from Hunter Green. I think everybody wants to see big things from Hunter Green. Graham Ashcraft, Luke Weaver, and Luis Sessa. And then in the bullpen, you got Alexis Diaz, who I ultimately think they'll probably end up trading the way that Reds teams works. Maybe to the Mets because brother connection. But I wish I saw more from what I saw from the Cubs from them. You don't need to go, maybe not even like a Cody. You don't need like a Cody Bellinger because maybe he's not coming there. You don't want to pay that much. But go get some veterans that you can sell off at the deadline that help fill out this rotation. You could use a couple outfielders. I mean, the youngest guy in your starting lineup is Spencer Steer at 25. You have 2 guys under 26. So it's not like your team is full of really young like players that we really can prosper.
Yeah.
You have like middle of the road kind of just like journeymen or veterans. And that doesn't make sense to me. I know, look, like what they got for Luis Castillo and Noel Marte, awesome deal. And I know they got some big prospects coming up. But like, why not like go sign some? You don't need the big guys. Just go get some. Like right now, I'd love for them to go sign Jurickson Profar to like a 2-year deal.
Get you some hits.
He'll play a great center field for you. Get some clutch hits,
'Cause
and it's on a 2-year deal, so you can, if you want, you can keep him for another year, or it gives you even more value because then it's a guy with control that somebody's gonna want, and you can get probably, if he plays well, you can probably get like an 8, like a 7 to 10 prospect in the top, a 7 to 10 ranked prospect in somebody's system, and another prospect, something like that.
Well,
Like, why wouldn't you do that?
I totally agree because anything would be better than Nick Senzel in center field. He was awful last year. Negative 1.3 WAR. Like
I just
terrible.
I
I
don't get it. Like, I understand. I like the Will Myers. I think that was like, just do something like Will Myers. Again, Will Myers is not a awesome player, but like, you're telling me a playoff team wouldn't like a Will Myers on their bench
yeah,
to be a low
yeah, no,
rotation
totally.
bat.
I think that Cincinnati's front office is in gridlock and they
Oh,
don't do
this is
anything.
not
They
on.
want to sell
And
the
I know
team.
he's very limited. Their
Yeah,
general manager.
yeah.
This more goes on the owner. He's
He's
awful. Sell the
terrible.
team, please,
Terrible.
for
Sell the team.
Cincinnati.
Saying that, of course, yeah, there were no moves this offseason that really like deserve any saying. But I think there is some promise in that rotation. Hunter Green, of course. I really like Graham Ashcraft. I think he pitched really well in certain spots last year. Certain spots he got blown up. Nick Lodolo is a nice young piece. Bring up Ellie De La Cruz middle of the season. Maybe he sparks a little bit of life into you. And
Do you
then
move him to, like, are you going to start playing him at second or third because you
you
got
give him
Marte?
shortstop.
What about
Kevin
Marte?
Kevin
Do you move
Newman.
Marte to third?
Um, Probably. Yeah. I think Ellie De La Cruz is the guy
Those are
at
your two.
shortstop.
Those are your two big pieces right now, or hitters in your farm system.
That's really all they're holding on to. This season for the Reds is going to be a Joey Votto retirement tour, and the Hunter Green highlights, and that's pretty much it.
Maybe in Jonathan India bounce back year.
I don't see it. I think his rookie year was a fluke.
Ooh, I
Yeah,
disagree,
I
but
don't see it.
I give this team, because I do like the Will Myers deal. I guess just because, like, it's a nice veteran you can ship off. I give them a D.
I was gonna say D plus, a little more generous, but
D and D
yeah.
plus for the Reds. All right, let's move on to the another team that didn't have a great offseason. That is the Colorado Rockies. Of course, last offseason had a big splurge in Chris Bryant, which shook a lot of heads and made absolutely no sense. And this offseason, they didn't do much like they usually do. They signed Jose Urena. They signed Pierre Johnson. I think that's the only major league contracts they've signed.
And then really they only really traded for Nolan Jones as the big trade, which I really like Nolan Jones.
But, like, this is a lineup that just screams mid. It screams
Yeah,
like
they're gonna
an
be
aging
getting
guys like Chris Bryant and I'm sorry I cut you off there. Aging, like, and Charlie Blackmon, Ryan McMahon's a nice piece. Jonathan Dawes is a nice piece. CJ Crone is getting up there in age, but you probably should have sold him at the deadline last year. You really don't have any arms. You have Daniel Bard, who, why haven't you? I thought they would have
yeah.
traded him. They have Herman Marquez, who I thought they would have traded, but they didn't. They ended up re-signing him. I don't know what Colorado's doing.
I think it's really just kind of turning into a changing of the guard, and I think Chris Bryant just got caught up in that, and for the
Then
money,
why sign?
he can
Why give him
win.
that money? Like, what does that do?
Fill seats. I don't know, but I think Ezekiel Tovar shows a lot of promise coming up out of the city. He's an underrated prospect in my opinion. I really like him. I think he's going to be a really good shortstop for them. Got a little dip last year in the big leagues. CJ Crone's getting up there in age, but they've got Miguel Toglia coming up soon. So really for the Rockies, I think they're just in a state of purgatory where they're not in heaven, they're not in hell, they're just there.
To me, that's the worst place to be, because
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
you're
Definitely.
not getting the picks and the prospects that you need, and you're not competing for a title. So to me, they get an F. They get an F. You failed. You failed the offseason.
I can't give him an F because I really like Nolan Jones. I think that was an underrated move. Young outfielder, shows a lot of promise. Maybe he goes to Coors and has a good year. I'll give him a D. I can't give him an F.
Okay. D and an F, though. Still
Yeah.
not great. All right, now we're moving to a team that's their crown for the first time in a while could be challenged. That's the Los Angeles Dodgers. We've seen the Padres been coming up on them year after year, and they've really, with getting Xander Bogaerts, as we'll talk about later, have put their claim in for the NL West. The Dodgers, they didn't do much. They did not do
They did
much. They
not.
lose Trey Turner this offseason to the Phillies. They re-sign Clayton Kershaw, which was a nice move, of course. You get Noah Syndergaard, which I think could be a very underrated move.
Great move.
Very underrated. I think they could get him back. They signed JD Martinez to be their DH. I don't know how much they could have done more because I don't know if they tried to get Turner. It's not like they didn't try to re-sign him. Maybe like
They should have gotten a shortstop. They had to get a shortstop. I mean, you're the Dodgers.
I think I agree with you. I think, and I know. Listen, they have the number one prospect pool in the league. So, of course, one of those top guys is going to come up and be an absolute stud and just make us look stupid. But I feel like you had to sign one of those guys. I think your pitching is good. You said that Tony Gonsolin just re-signed today.
Yes, today, 2-year deal, 2-year extension.
Got extended. So that makes your rotation be
that rotation is nuts.
It's filthy. It's filthy. You got Walker Buehler, you got Julio Urias, you got Clayton Kershaw, you got Syndergaard, and you got Gonsolin, and then you got Dustin May. Don't forget about him
too. I mean,
so you're gonna have one of those guys. That's 6 guys. One, preparing for injury. That's a stud rotation. Your bullpen's still very strong. You got the Daniel Hudson, Evan Phillips, Alex Avisa. It's not as strong as it once was, but it's still very good.
They've got some young Alex
JP Ferguson's going to come back from IR.
Alex Vesia and Brusdar Graterol, I expect to be one of the top bullpen pairs in the league this year. I think Brusdar or Vesia is going to get the closer role, and they are going to feast. Evan Phillips, it's a 3-headed monster with those guys. I mean, if you get to the 6th inning with a lead with this lineup, it's gonna be a win.
I'm just wondering, this team relied so. I mean, listen, they got contributing like hits and stuff from guys like Trace Thompson and Gavin Lux. Chris Taylor didn't have a great year, but they heavily relied on the big 3 in Betts, in Freeman, in Turner. Now you're hoping from a bounce back from Max Muncy, and he's kind of this every other year guy. So you're expecting a bounce back from Max Muncy because the dude's a stud. But I wanted to see more, and I know it's hard to do more. And they might be looking towards next offseason. I think they're looking at Shohei. I don't know if they land Shohei, but there's going to be other guys. I think they'll probably look at if Machado goes. I think Machado fits perfectly there, and that would be a nice dig at the Padres. But even like I just don't know. Maybe they make a big trade for another guy. Who I was looking at the whatchamacallit. Who's going to get paid next year because there's not that many big hitters who I think would fit well here, but a lot of places. Tim Anderson is going to get paid next year.
I would like that. I think
there's a lot of teams he fits.
Yeah. Big average guy.
Exactly.
I'm gonna go with a B- for the Dodgers.
I have the exact same grade, B-. I think they did enough to not give them a C, getting a JD Martinez, getting a Syndergaard underrated move, re-signing Kershaw. But I feel like they just did enough to stay afloat, and there's going to be a lot of people picking the Padres to win
Yeah,
this
including myself.
division, and I'm leaning Padres. This is still a playoff team. This is still a 90 plus win team, but that's not the goal of the Dodgers. The goal
Yeah,
of Dodgers is win the division and win the World Series,
the
and
Cards are
otherwise
fast.
it's a bust.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm worried. If I'm a Dodgers fan, that doesn't it feels farther than most seasons it would. That
Yeah,
goal seems harder to achieve.
usually they're the favorite every single year, but maybe a little bit chip on the shoulder will be good for them.
That's true. I can't always be
Uh,
the favorite. All right,
yeah.
let's move on to a team down south in the Miami Marlins.
L-
They had a little bit of action. There
of late,
the big
yeah.
one was they traded Pablo Lopez. Boom. Boom.
Yeah. Very, very big move. But for the batting champ,
For Luis Arias. Exactly. And
who's
I will
young?
admit we can get to Minnesota in our next episode. I did love that trade for Minnesota as they got a top prospect as well. So I don't mind because of how strong your rotation is. I don't
Agreed.
mind that, and you're really trying to build. The Achilles heel for the Marlins has always been hitting, so I don't mind that. You have to trust a guy like Luzardo to really start to come, and Edward Cabrera. They
Trevor
have to start.
Rogers had a surprisingly down year last year after a stellar rookie campaign. I see him bouncing back.
I do too,
Well,
but I think you're going to need guys like an Edward Cabrera, a Jesus Luzardo to step up and start to really become the pitchers that people thought they could be.
another big addition that we'll see this year is Sixto Sanchez will be back for spring
Sixto
training.
Sanchez could be huge. I think he's a huge X factor for this team because
Yeah.
he was putting up.
He was he beat the Cubs in the wild card game in 2020. And then he still has rookie status, which is ridiculous.
I mean, does he really?
He does. Yeah.
That's future's bet. Rookie of the year. That's not a talent.
That's a stacked. That'd be a nice little future.
That's
But
not if the value's there, that's not a
the
bad
value is
bet.
there. The value is
But
there.
they also, I'm pretty sure they got Gene Segura for a 2-year deal. That was probably their biggest signing of the offseason. They also got Johnny Cueto to go in that back end. They also got Chichi Gonzalez on a 3-year contract. I like what they did. I think I don't know how it is moving Jazz to center field. I liked him at second base.
Yeah.
Although I do like Gene Segura as a veteran, I think he's fit better in other places. Like for Gene's perspective, I think there was other places you probably fit better at. But for the Marlins perspective, it's just another vet. You probably not this year, but next year if you don't make the playoffs, it's going to be tough in this division.
Yeah, you're not making the playoffs this year.
And so like you could, I don't see them trading off Gene this year, maybe next year, but I don't know what they're going to be next year. But it gives you some flexibility. I like what they did. I do like what the Marlins did this year.
I think the Marlins aren't shying away from who they are at all, and which is just a fun roster full of look who that is, guys. And I feel like they embraced that even more this offseason with Gene Segura and Luis Arias and even Johnny Cueto.
Johnny
So,
Cueto's it's just a nice vet to go
yeah,
into that
yeah.
lineup.
It's
37.
not but it's nothing that's gonna tip the needle. This
No.
team is gonna be exactly who we think they are. So I think I'm going another B minus.
I'm going to B. I'm doing a little more generous than you this time.
Okay.
So yeah, I go B. I like what they did.
Yeah.
I think they know they're not that division.
Yeah, they just want to be fun, fill seats,
full seats, and just start to produce, get their players to start to produce and some MLB experience, so they can start to fight for that division in a couple of years. All right, let's move on to the Milwaukee Brewers, who I think made the best trade of the offseason, getting themselves William Contreras and only having to give up a prospect who is known for stealing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he's a nice piece and he stole a lot of bags. But for William Contreras, are you effing kidding me? Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
So that was a slam dunk home run, A plus 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 move. Now, the rest of the offseason, not they got Brian Anderson to play to be a little third base, out base kind of platoon guy. They got
Mhm.
Wade Miley to go into the rotation. They got Blake Perkins to be a little again like a platoon guy, who can go from AAA to on the roster, kind of be that in between kind of guy, one of those guys. And again, this pitching rotation remains filthy. They add Wade Miley to it. Now you got Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, Lauer, and Wade Miley. Ooh, that is a filthy lineup.
It's pretty nice.
But that's never been the problem with one. It's can they put up enough runs? Adames is a very underrated shortstop.
I love
Yelich
Adonis.
again is I hate to say it, Yelich is kind of underrated because people overrate because he was so high. And now he's never going to be that player again. I think people,
Never again.
but he's here and people think he's here because of how bad he had
I
those couple
I
years.
think he's there.
I think he's an underrated. I think people think he's a nice player. I think people just because of those MVP years, they're so disappointed in him. They think he's terrible. So I think he's a tad underrated. But Luis Arias, that stance, the all the way back. That's funny. Rowdy Tellez had a very good year. You
Yeah.
had William Contreras to be your catcher. They traded for Jesse Winker as well. I did
And
forget about that.
Ibrahim
They traded
Toro.
whatchamacallit? They traded Colton Wong for him. I did
Yeah.
like that trade a lot. You know,
Abraham
um,
Toro is a nice little side
yeah,
piece.
and then they're gonna have Bryce Turing as their starting second baseman. He's only 23 right now. Give him a chance. Ship Colton Wong, get a nice DH and Jesse Winker. He doesn't have to play the outfield anymore, really. Just focus on hitting because he can rake. He
He
can.
can
We've
rake.
seen it.
We've
We've
seen him
seen it.
do it in the NL Central.
So from trade's perspective, I thought they were awesome, but
Yeah.
like signing wise, it just wasn't enough for me. So they're one of the weirder teams to grade. I'm gonna end up giving them a C plus, I think, just because I really wanted this team to do more just to compete with the Cardinals for the title because you're not getting a wild card. I'm sorry, you're not getting a wild card. It's
No.
division title or it's bust. And I wish it did more. You could have, I think, you could have signed like another player, another guy, another Jerkston Profar would fit awesome on this team. That's a
I
guy that
uh I also didn't see them really doing anything really of William Contreras, great pickup, but I don't think they're doing anything to really help themselves win. I think they're the same Brewers that they've always been. I think that they're going to sell at the deadline when they suck. I think they're going to trade Woodruff or Burns, if not both. Jackson Chorio's coming up,
Garrett
maybe a
Mitchell,
little bit of
if
a
he can be
youth
a stud.
movement, and we see them sell off a bit, maybe even a lot. But I just, if you really wanted to go for it, you
They
would
should
have
have went for it.
got somebody.
They should have went all
This
out.
is this is the year to go for it. But the Brewers front office will never pay anyone, as evident in the CC Sabathia move way back when. It's still held true. They're never going to pay anybody, and for that reason, they will always be in purgatory.
So what did you? I'm giving them a C plus.
C minus. Just do something if you want to compete.
I just like if it was only trades, they get an A plus. So it's just so hard to pull it all the way down. But all right, now we're going to my team. That's the New York Metropolitans. Now, they were supposed to land the big name in Carlos Correa. He does not end up coming to the Mets. He goes back to the Twins. But guess what? It was nice. It would have been nice to have him. It would have been the cherry on top on the Sunday. But guess what? You don't need a cherry to enjoy a good Sunday. This was still a stellar offseason for Uncle Stevie and the New York Metropolitans.
I've got to give it to him. They really did it. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. He went out and said, Jacob DeGrom, you're going to leave? Okay, I'll bring in the Cy Young. I'll
Justin
bring in
Verlander.
the best pitcher since Shohei to come out of Japan. I'll bring in Jose Quintana, who just had a resurgent year. Sure, we'll shore up the bullpen with David Robertson, who just was the closer for a World Series team. Like he
Sure,
just,
we'll give Edward Diaz 100 mil to make him the
yeah,
highest paid reliever ever. Oh, Brandon Nimmo, yeah, you'll get your bag. Jeff McNeil, oh, you're doing 2 years. Oh, we'll give you an absolute steal of a contract. Like, oh, we need some depth as well. Tommy Pham, you look nice as a fourth outfielder.
yeah. I
Oh, James McCann, you suck. Get out of here. Bring me Omar Narvaez.
as much as I love to hate on the Mets and I love to hate on the Mets, there's really nothing that I can pick apart here. I mean, the Correa fiasco was a whole thing within itself, but they didn't need Correa.
Again,
Lindor just had one of
would
the
have
best
been
years of the
awesome to
century.
have Correa.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But yeah, you didn't. I think what this does now. I mean, we would have had the money anyway. It's Uncle Steve, but they are going, in my opinion, to make Shohei Ohtani the highest paid athlete, not baseball player, highest paid athlete in history, whether he's on the Mets or not, because they're going to make him that offer. And if he says no, somebody else will have to match it.
somebody will have to match it. Yeah,
So he is going to be, and I do think he'll be a Met, but it doesn't really matter right now. We're looking at this offseason. They're a stud team from top to bottom. And I think some complaints I've seen from non-Mets fans or haters or Mets fans that just love to hate themselves is
yeah.
you just replace, you replaced DeGrom with Verlander. You replaced Bassett with Senga. Well, what did you want to do? A, not replace them. Like, you want to just let everybody go?
Yeah.
And B, it's a lot of money. This team won 100+ games last year. It was the second most they won in franchise history.
I think
This
I
is a
think
very good
Verlander
team.
I think Verlander can be seen as an upgrade
He's gonna
to
play more. He's gonna play
yes,
more games.
he's
He's gonna
gonna
pitch more
throw the
innings.
innings. Yeah, he's
So,
gonna.
and then, like, because you were without Max and when you're without Jake for that long, if you have them both healthy for most of the year, that's more wins than because of last year they didn't play as much.
And Senga could go to half the teams in the league and be the ace, and he's gonna be the third man.
I mean, that fork ball is nasty, that ghost ball. So the only thing I'm worried about is him. I know with that splitter, because the ball is bigger, sometimes they have health issues, Japanese pitchers coming over. I'm a little worried about that, but he's not going to play in the World Baseball Classic he's staying with the Mets because he wants to work with them. And that
Good.
I love. I absolutely love. So I give them an A. I don't give them an A plus because you did lose Correa, but again, it doesn't. That's just the topping. But that's what makes an A plus. But it's still an A to me. It's still an A.
I give him an A plus.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I mean, I'll take the A plus. Like I'm not mad with anybody giving me my team an A plus. Now this team, on the other hand, they had a good off season as well.
They did indeed.
Philadelphia Phillies did not want to see this team. They sign the big one. They get Trey Turner
The jewel
for
of the
a
offseason.
long time. A long time, an 11-year deal. Little, probably much. He's gonna be He's gonna be in his 40s by the time that contract ends. It's gonna be a
But
40.
if you get another
But
World Series
again, if you
appearance
get
out of
8 years,
the contract's worth it.
it's worth. Yeah, I agree. You
Yeah.
get Taiwan Walker for 4 years. He's coming in to kind of replace Mr. Syndergaard or Mr. Gibson. You
Who
got
just had a very good year.
Matt Strom in the relief end for 2 years. You signed Craig Kimbrell for a 1-year contract. I am curious to see how he does in his age at 35. This was an awesome offseason for them. I wish I saw more as a Phillies fan. If I'm not if I was a Phillies fan, I wish I saw them do more from the bullpen's perspective because I think again that's their Achilles heel. But this lineup is stacked. I think Trey Turner is going to help you defensively. I still think I'm worried about the defense with Bohm and Hoskins. I am curious on that how it works. And Bryce Harper's going to be out for a little bit with the surgery.
Yeah. It's really just if Trey Turner is enough to really catalyst that offense the whole time Bryce is out. The signing's already worth it.
Listen, this is a fantastic offseason for me, but again, I don't think I give it the A plus because I wish
No.
I saw more. But this was a fantastic offseason as a Philly. If you're a Phillies fan, getting probably the biggest hitter in the market besides Aaron Judge, because they weren't in the running for Aaron Judge. Probably the second biggest hitter, we'll say. In Trey Turner, you get a great pitcher in Taijuan Walker. Although his splits are first half, second half a little different. I did enjoy Taijuan Walker's time at New York. 4 years was a lot, but he's a very good pitcher. So I give them an A minus.
I was gonna say I think I'm feeling them at like an 89.85, but the teacher's generous and they rise it up to an A minus. So that's what I'm feeling here. They're getting the benefit of the doubt just because they went to the World Series.
All right, so they get an A minus. They had a great offseason. All right, we're down to the last 5 teams here. We got the Pittsburgh Pirates up.
God. Oh, God.
That just hurts.
I don't even want to elaborate on any of this. Straight F. F, F, F. This was
I don't give them an F. I will not give them an F.
I'm giving them an F.
They get Andrew McCutchen back on the team. And I know he's not going to be this stud, but you could probably sell him off at the deadline for some pieces. He's going to be a fourth outfielder somewhere. And just to bring him back home, that good kind of feel of Kutch finally being back in Pittsburgh, it's going to sell some tickets. It's a good story.
It's going to sell tickets, yeah.
You got Dick Hill. Oh, who doesn't love Rich Hill? I love Rich Hill. He's 43 years old and still kicking it with that awesome curveball. It's like 68 miles an hour.
The Pirates social media team, their big signing of the offseason was Rich Hill. They made a 2.5-minute hype video for a 43-year-old starting pitcher, Rich Hill. And if that doesn't tell you the state of the franchise, that's all you need to know.
Yeah. They had a couple other deals like Vin Velasquez they signed for a year. I did like that. Carlos Santana they signed for a year. Ultimately, you wish you did more. They did trade for G-Man Choi. I think is their best move of the offseason. I do like G-Man Choi. I think this this team is in a weird spot where you need more prospects. You need to like Jack Sawinski. You need guys like that to come in and make an impact.
I like
Rodolfo Castro. You're gonna love to see O'Neal Cruz more. We'll see if they trade Brian Reynolds. Don't know.
Maybe. I mean, you've got Tamar Johnson in the
wings. They want a king's ransom for him, and I think they should ask for a king's ransom because if they get it, well, great. If not, why not like have Brian Reynolds?
Yeah.
Their pitching is brutal though. Their pitching is awful.
Terrible.
And that's where you wish I think they did more just to support it for even like half until the deadline. Like just go get some vets, man. Like Vin Velasquez is nice, but like come on.
They've got a couple really nice pitching prospects, but they're all 2 to 3 years away.
Exactly. So
all high school pitchers like 2 years ago, but they're just
So to me, I thought they got a couple nice vets to go with the lineup. It's not a good lineup, but it's a lineup that you would expect from the Pirates and that they can sell off. And then pitching they did nothing, which kind of irks me. So I give them a D plus.
I give them an F minus. Expelled. I hate them. Terrible.
I feel for the city of Pittsburgh because they're also, I will say, their stadium is the nicest stadium in baseball.
It is pretty cool. Easy.
It's one of the nice, and I never said it's the best.
Okay.
It's one of the nicest. With that view, the bridge, it's the food.
Schwarber putting bombs in the river.
Let's not talk about that. We liked Schwarber before last year, not anymore. All right, let's move on to Slam Diego. They go get themselves Mr. Xander Bogaerts. What?
What a great move.
11-year deal for Xander Bogaerts. They also get themselves a guy like Matt Carpenter to be the DH, along with Nelson Cruz. They got Seth Lugo to go in their bullpen. They got David Dahl, who can be a nice outfielding player. Yeah. They also got Adam Engel. This was an interesting. If you're just going on pure off-season moves, this is, I think, an A. The problem is, at least for me, while I love Xander Bogaerts, and I think Xander Bogaerts, if you talk about last year, and if you're not including Tatis, he's not playing shortstop anymore. He's a top 3 to 4 shortstop for me in the league, with Lindor, with Turner, and with Correa. My problem is, you probably can't sign Soto now. And from a lot of reports is they're probably not going to be able to. And if you had to make me choose between Bogaerts and Soto, I'm taking Soto like every day of the week. So like, well, and then also like, or is it you dropping Machado next year? Like, would you rather have Bogaerts or Machado? I'm taking Manny. So, I love the player, and if they win the championship year, this season, it doesn't matter then. It's a little head scratching, but then again, like you're just making your team better. But like just for what you gave up for Soto to let him walk in 2 years, it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable.
I also see that point of view, but I think that the Padres are looking at it as, they smell blood in the water and they want to strike.
It is the year to strike. I will admit, this is the year.
I feel like they're doing everything possible that they can to go and get that chip. I mean, they were 2 wins away from a World Series.
So I mean, this is an awesome team. Your first 4 is Machado, Soto, Bogaerts, and Tatis. So, I mean, not in that order, but like those are your first 4 batters. That is the best first 4 batters in all of baseball, and I don't think it's even that close. They're ridiculous. Then you got Ha-Seong Kim, who played an awesome shortstop while Tatis was away. Yeah, you have Trent Grisham, who if he plays anything close to like his playoff form, he's going to be an all-star. Where did that come after the terrible year that he had? After the terrible year that he had, he was one of their best players in the playoffs. You get Matt Carpenter, Austin Nola. I think they probably, if they look to upgrade in like the trade deadline, I think they look catcher to go with Austin Nola. But yeah, this is so I'm gonna give this an A-. I like what they did. Again, the little head scratcher for the future is why it's not an A. But I'm gonna give this an A- because for right now to win the championship this year, they did a lot, and I like what they did.
I am also going A-. I feel like they could have gotten another starter, but they did everything they could. They tried to go after every single free agent.
They wanted Turner. Then there was like, no, then give me Bogart or Correa. No. And then they had that little, like maybe could have got Correa. But then they're like, all right, like give me Bogarts. And it's like, well, how many freaking shortstops do you want?
Yeah.
They're like, give me all the shortstops. We want all of them. All right. Now to go to the fan base that was probably had the rope pulled under them more than anybody. And I kind of like, I think San Francisco fans are a little bit spoiled. I kind of like I've always kind of, because my grandfather was a New York Giants fan before they moved to San Francisco. So I sometimes try to root for them. But yeah, you have Aaron Judge for about 10 minutes. Then you have Correa for what, a couple days, a week? Both gone. Rug pulled under you. Sayonara. Instead of them, you get Mitch Haniger and Michael Conforto. Well, I think Michael Conforto has a very big bounce back here and has a great year in San Francisco. I think he is actually a very good signing. It's just nowhere the loss that they feel of not getting a Judge or a Correa. It doesn't matter. Like, he's not going to have that type of year. So,
yeah, it had to be such heartbreak to go through that twice. I mean, to see it literally on Bob Nightingale's Twitter twice that you've signed two superstars and just none. But I really like the Manea signing. I think he adds a lot of depth to their
I do like
rotation.
the Sean Manaea shining.
But really, I
Ross
mean,
Stripling, I thought that was a very good signing. Very good for. Here's the thing with the Giants. They don't seem to want to rebuild or retool, but they don't have any young guys. They have a bunch of
Joey
old.
Bart,
What? Joey
Joey
Bart.
Bart,
Joey
maybe.
Bart to me is not going to be that. Like he's going to be an average catcher at best. To me, I just don't have any belief in Joey Bart. But besides him, like I like their pitching staff, but there's just no like they need some young guys in this roster, and it's not like I mean they have Luis Campusano, I believe, or is that no, no Luis Campusano, I believe is excuse me, I think that's the Padres. Hold on, yeah, they don't really have like a bunch of prospects that is going to come into their uh
I they had their number 6 prospect is most likely going to start the season with them this year. Casey Schmidt. I like this guy a lot. He won Cape League MVP this past year. Very under the radar prospect. I like him a lot. I think
I just
he
don't
could do
think there's
some things.
Luciano, excuse me, not Campusano. It's Marco Luciano.
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a mix up. Sorry, I'm not the prospects guy. I ain't a fan. I ain't Fangraphs. I ain't um. So a little mistake, but Luciano I like. 21. He's probably gonna get some MLB experience this year. He's probably gonna play a lot actually this year. Um, from what I think, but overall, this line it just feels like it's missing that piece. It's
yeah.
missing like
Judge would have brought the whole thing together.
it does, but it also like you wanted that piece, but you also want young guys to come up and fill like the rest of the cracks, and they don't have that either. So I'm kind of just like, what do you like? Because I wish they just had more, again, more like young guys that I really think are going to come in and really make a huge impact. Because a lot of their prospects are pitching, which their pitching is already pretty solid. Obviously, you can always use more pitchers. You can never not have enough pitchers. But I just feel like
I think
because
they have 3 guys who could see
like Brandon
a lot of
Crawford's
MLB
going to
time
how
this year.
long is he gonna play? Sorry, you said three guys. Oh,
I think Casey Schmidt could be an answer at shortstop or third base. Marco Luciano, he's going to be probably the everyday. He might start out at second base. I wonder what that passing of the guard is going to be like with Crawford. And then Luis Matos is going to see some time in the outfield.
so right now their starting lineup, their projected starting lineup, they have two guys. Actually, never mind, three guys under the age of 30. I'm just saying you would want to like again, Conforto, nice.
I
I
think I
like the
think
Haniger signing, although he's a nice vet. But like Brandon Crawford, Wilmer Flores again on the wrong side of 30. Jock Peterson on the wrong side of 30, although I like him. Like, I want some more young guys for that team. I feel like they gotta go and get like just a young piece who maybe is blocked behind a position or something like that. Like, go get like an Oswaldo Cabrera. Because if or like for the Yankees, is it gonna be
Volpe
what's
or Cabrera.
Volpe or Cabrera, whichever one does it. For example, something like that where they're not going to make it. Or if there's a top, like I think Campusano from the Padres, he's going to be blocked by now Bogarts or Tatis or Hassan Kim. Like this dude's not playing shortstop, and third base is Machado. Like
Yeah.
and second base is Cronenworth. Where's he going? Go pick him. And that's a division rival. But examples of those, go pick one of those guys up who can be a player. And then, yes, I wish they need a centerpiece that as well. So they do also lose Rodon, which was a big loss. So overall, I'm gonna give them like I don't want to be too harsh. I'm gonna give them a C minus. Like they tried, they failed, they got some nice piece. I know we'll give them a C. We'll give them a C
That's exactly where my head was at.
because I
The effort
love the
was there.
Conforto signing. I think the Haniger signing is nice. I like the Manaya. I like Stripling. It's okay. Like you missed kind of like, but like you meh. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah,
All right.
totally agree.
We got two more here. We got, oh, you're not going to want to, I know you don't, you want to give this team a Z if you could. That's the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean,
Yeah, it really hurts to see. And we totally could have signed Contreras for the money he got. I think it was around 17 a year. That's totally doable, but
I just don't think the back half, like by year
it won't be
4,
good.
year 5, that's when you're going to start to become like, you're
Yeah,
hopefully not just like you're not competing for a division, but you're starting to compete for World Series at that point. That's what your timeline should be. He's not why like he's going to be a backup catcher at that point. Why are you paying him that much money? So for the timeline, he just didn't fit. It just happened to suck that he went to the freaking Cardinals, I think.
it
But
does. It does.
so they
That
get
was really
they
it,
lose.
though.
Sorry.
That was really it. I mean, you bring back Wainwright for a year, but
Mhm. They
that's
lose
pretty much
out.
it.
They non-tender Alex Reyes, which was interesting for me. I think he'd been very injured, but the dude has some nasty stuff. So if he wherever he signs, he could be a nice piece. They lose Quintana, who I think he started their first playoff game, game 1.
He had a
Like, that's
pretty
big.
good. He had a pretty good
Yeah,
year. He had a
very
really good.
good year. He completely reinvented himself this year, or last year, and like they just didn't do as much. And it's weird because they pretty much I'm pretty confident they're going to win this division. But like, why is that your goal? Like, should be to win the World Series. And I know how stacked the NL is. Like, they
Yeah,
have like if you're talking about the best of the best teams, most of them are in the NL. I mean, there's I think a lot more depth in the AL, but the powerhouses are mostly in the NL. So again, I understand it's probably tough to go win a pennant, but we just saw the Phillies do it from the wild card. Why can't you? Why are you not trying to do something like that?
I think they're still feeling really locked up from the Goldschmidt and Arenado contracts. I
But
think that's really all
those
that's holding
contracts are
them
worth
back.
every penny. Every
Yeah,
penny.
yeah, exactly. But I don't think that St. Louis really wants to spend a ton.
I like their lineup. Their lineup's
Yeah,
great. Goldschmidt,
yeah.
Arenado, Tommy Edman,
There'll
Tyler
probably be
O'Neill.
enough in the Central.
That's again, and that's a very good lineup. I just need to see more pitching. Why, like for example, why wouldn't they go after Rodon? Like put Rodon in this lineup in that rotation, and you got Montgomery, you got Wainwright, you got Jack Flaherty, who could hopefully have a really big bounce back year. Steven Matz and Rodon. Are you kidding me? That's a fantastic lineup now. And now so I feel like they could have probably, or for example, who I think would have been a great fit here, who we'll talk about in the AL video, Chris Bassett would have been an awesome fit in St. Louis.
I agree.
Something like that. Or Ross Stripling. Like, I feel like they needed another pitcher and they didn't get it. So I feel like they're like, hey, like, we won the division. Yay. Good for us. It's like, no, go win a freaking title. So over
Exactly.
like again, I give them a B minus because again, they're probably going to win the division. They made a nice deal with Wilson Contreras. I don't know why I'm saying William, but that's the Brewers. But I wanted to see another pitcher.
Yeah, I'm feeling C plus C range just because I hate them and they're the worst team ever and they stole one of my favorite players ever. And, I think they kind of just maintained. They're plateauing and they're fine with it,
Which is not it shouldn't be okay. They shouldn't
which
be
should
okay.
never be your position.
Yeah. All right. Now the last team is we have a team that is probably slated to finish last in their division in the NL East, probably one of the
Yeah.
worst teams in the league because of the powerhouse of their division. It's the Washington Nationals. And I'll be honest, I kind of like what they did. They get Corey Dickerson, who you're going to probably trade off, sign Willie Peralta for kind of that middle relief role, along with Trevor Williams, who if you're going to give him a starting role, he was awesome as that fill-in guy with the Mets who just eat innings when there was hurt. Giving Dom Smith a chance. If he turns out to be a stud, you can keep him or you could trade him. There's no risk to that and all reward. You know, Travis Blankenhorn they agreed to on a minor league deal.
Heimer Candelario probably going to be the starting
Candelario
third
could play a
baseman.
little bit of third, a little bit of first. Nothing again. Anthony Banda, Alex Colomé. Nothing that like scream again, but this team is so in limbo right now, like so in limbo.
I really like their approach this offseason, which was kind of we're going to get boomer bust guys, and if
Exactly.
they
And if they
boom,
boom, sweet,
great, we'll flip
we can
them.
keep them if they're young enough or if we like them. If not, we'll build up our prospect pool. And
Yeah,
I like that. So again, it's not a slam dunk, obviously, but like what you weren't expecting that from the Nationals. You don't need
yeah,
that from the Nationals. So ultimately, I'm gonna give them a B. Or B, you know what? B minus. B minus.
yeah. I was
But
thinking
like
along the lines of C.
that's a good grade for them.
Yeah, it was what they needed to do. They obviously weren't going to sign anybody of noteworthy or do anything to really help their standing in the division. So I think they did what they could. So I'll move it up to a C plus.
There we go. All right. So that's the NL. We don't know over each team next week or third. We'll figure out a time, but very soon, next episode at least, it'll be the AL's turn. They better get their term in. We're gonna go down like teacher grade, get our
I'm
red
gonna be
pens out.
grading. I'm gonna be grading some exams on
Yeah,
Thursday
they better bring their
afternoon.
A game. But this was great to be back. Cool to see all these teams, kind of what they did, what they didn't do. A lot of excitement, a lot of disappointment, depending on which fan bases that you are. And I'm excited. Spring training's coming right around the corner.
Very soon. It is coming and it's coming fast.
It's coming fast. I'm excited. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Moonshots and Meatballs here. I'll see you on the other side.